Hey, welcome back. KTCR, Kill the Cat Radio, Sharp Teeth, episode number seven. We're going to be doing two of these a week, like I said, every Monday and Friday. So this is Friday, March 3rd. Pretty good day. We survived the storm. Nothing bad. Everybody, never believe the weatherman. Great to have all of you back. Thank you for all the new subscribers. We got a bunch of new subscribers today. You too can also follow KTCR's Sharp Teeth. Press the subscribe button right below and always receive a notification when Kill the Cat Radio's new episode comes out. That's how you stay together with me. That's how I stay connected with you. I'm aiming for another 960 members. That's what I'm thinking. Just get us to 1,000. That's where we need to be. So happy Friday to everybody. Welcome to the episode. We've got a great episode today. We've got everything here. We've got the guitar. We've got the statue. We've got our book here. You can see there's like a pattern here with my books. This is a little more Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises. Talked about that in the last couple episodes there. But we got our clipboard. Our clipboard is back. We are always working on this. It's because I'm from the 90s. That was a time before computers, before any of that crazy business, all this digitizing, the world of deep fakes and shaming people online, canceling people through social media platforms. What a disaster, right? So I come from the 90s. It was a good time. It was a more innocent time, I think. We had cassettes, we had records, we had laser discs, and then suddenly the internet arrives and boom, everything changes. I could never even do this episode with you if it was 1998. I would need a whole camera crew and a whole thing, but thanks to Steve Jobs and a couple other smart guys, here we are, and we're talking to each other now. So welcome to the show. Let's see here. New news. Well, we're moving on. As I said, we're doing this twice a week. Our listening hours are doing great these days. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much for being a part of this little YouTube adventure here. Kill the Cat Radio always has an intro, which I just did, rambling on about 90s. We will also always have 3 topics a week. Some will be news, some will be entertainment, some will be philosophy, some will be personal stories. And of course, we have your guys' favorite, Who is the Creep of the Week? Uh-oh, who's it going to be this week? We have a talkback section. That section, of course, is when we respond to your comments and criticisms that we received either online or down in the comment section. So if you do enjoy anything of this program, please go ahead and write. If you don't enjoy it either, you can also write down in the comment section about what you think, and I'll talk back to you in a good way, in a nice way. We don't really get angry over here. I'm getting a little too old to be angry. 45 years old, too old to be angry. And then that's it. So let's get into the program. We're going to talk about France. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about this country. It's a different kind of country. I think it would be considered a homogeneous culture, a locked system. It has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of tradition. And if you're an outsider, then you really are an outsider. Yes, they look like you and me. And the country's changing, of course. But a lot of people, when they think about France, they think of a lot of tropes and a lot of sort of postcard pictures of what it's like having a baguette under your arm and a rose behind your ear, and you're skipping around with your love by the River Seine, feet dangling over the dark, swarming waters, eating a picnic by the Notre Dame. Oh, yeah. All the dreams that people have, especially in America. They think, this is where we're going to go on our honeymoon. This is where we're going to, have a lot of great experiences. Our first point today is why I love the country of France. Now, there is an origin story here. When I was a very young boy, my mother would always have these beautiful posters of French culture. It would be, some old-timey photograph or some old bar advertisement. Just so, those beautiful posters, just really great stuff. I love this kind of look, the whole style of the 1920s. This is way before I got into any of the literary world or any of that stuff. And there was always something in a small town kid's dream to go to this strange foreign place where everything seemed to be magical and interesting, and the food was good and the women were beautiful and there was berets and everyone seems to be just so cultured and interesting. And I came from Rhode Island, which is a very cultured place. It's nice, but growing up there, it was a small town, They always say there's 2 sides to Rhode Island. There's Newport, where you own a boat and you go to all the great schools, and then there's the other side of Rhode Island. Now, there's nothing wrong with being working class, but that's the kind of world I came from. So being there as a young man, seeing these amazing posters, it really filled my mind with such wild imaginations. And I just kept thinking, oh God, I gotta get there. It'd be so fun. So I would spend a lot of time thinking about it, talking about it. Then as I got older, I started seeing that a lot of my favorite artists and writers from that era between 1880 and like maybe 1930 all spent time in Paris. And I think something in the back of my mind said, if you're going to be a writer, if you're going to be one of these people, if you're going to be your Henry Miller, Anais Nin, Hemingway, Lawrence Durrell, one of these travelers, Pablo Picasso, Vincent van Gogh, the list goes on and on. If you want to be one of these people and you want to have the talent they have and all of that, then you better get your little butt to Paris. It seemed like a world away. Plane tickets seems absolutely crazy. There would be no way that a young writer like myself could ever even make it to this strange fantasy land. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, make it I did. There's a lot of myths that go on about trying to get over to France. One of the myths is that it's very expensive. I will admit it's just as expensive as New York City. So if you were to come to New York City, not know anybody, stay in the wrong places, go to the wrong restaurants, yes, of course, you're going to end up spending tons of money, right? You're going to lose money, and you're probably going to be annoyed. You're not going to know the subway systems. You're not going to know where to go. You're going to be in tourist traps. And the same thing applies to when you go to France and you go to Paris, and you will be equally as confused. Plus, there's a language barrier. Unfortunate fact about Americans. Most Americans can't even speak their own language. No offense, guys. I'm an American. I love being a patriot, but we don't even know our own language. The average French young child knows 3 languages by the time they graduate what we would consider high school. All right. What's our education system like? I don't even think kids even know how to speak their own language by the time they graduate high school. So that's a problem. We'll get into that another time. We'll have a little educational episode about the problems and pitfalls of American education. Anyways, I'm not saying there's any better or worse. We all love America. We all love France. We love everybody. Why not? So little old Matthew was thinking, how the heck can I get over there? Well, doing a little research over the years, if you really look at plane tickets, if you are smart enough, you could buy them very early. That's the key to flight travel. Buy early. If you want to go somewhere, get the tickets first, worry about everything else later. That will focus you into really thinking about, okay, I'm going on this trip. This is a reality. So you get these tickets 6 months, 7 months, 8 months in advance. Round trip tickets nowadays on an overnight flight when you get to the Eastern Seaboard here could be as low as $350 per person. Can you believe that? If you plan in advance and go at off times, it's cheap. They want you to come there. They need the money for tourism. Paris lives and breathes on tourism. It's probably the most visited city other than New York City in all of the world. So they want you to come over there. Yes, you have to get your passport. That's another problem too. Only 13% of Americans have passports. Why not? I mean, you're an American citizen. You should have a passport. You can get one very, very, very easy. Take my word for this. You can even get a Rust job on your passport, like I think for like $175. You can have a passport overnight. Boom. They will send it to you. They will expedite it. You pay a little extra money and they will expedite it. You always can rely on America. If you got the cash, you can do whatever you want. So get your passport in order. Buy your tickets early. $350 per person. That's pretty good. Okay, now you got your plane ride down. And some of these French airlines, there's free alcohol on the flight. Remember that, because Europeans are cooler about alcohol than Americans are. We have some weird puritanical problems in our country. The second question is, what are you going to do when you get there? Most likely, you're probably going to go to Paris. That's where you're going to land. There are 2 airports. There's the Orly, which is right there in the city, and there's Charles de Gaulle, which is about an hour outside the city. All right. My advice to you, get to Orly, way easier. There's a free bus that takes you right to the city. Charles de Gaulle is pretty easy too. I think it's like a €3 ride on their little train tracks to get into the city of Paris, about an hour. Grab a book. You'll probably be really tired. So easy to do. Airbnbs are technically illegal in Paris, but if you make a deal with some of the house owners, or if you know other expat Americans who have a place, that's great. If you know anybody you could stay with, even better. Hotels are pricey. We have to remember that too. The French hotels are always smaller. We in America, we're lucky. We believe in space. We get a lot of space here. But the size of the country of France is smaller than Texas. That's a whole country. That's a whole culture. That's been thousands and thousands of year old culture. It's a small place. So when you get to Paris, you're going to be really surprised when you see how small the little rooms are, and they charge you an arm and a leg. Okay, it's terrible. You could stay outside of the city a little bit. You could do that if you wanted to. But my advice would be to get on forums, get on expat American forums, find out what Americans are staying there. They can rent you out a room. You can check out the Airbnbs, find out the ratings. There's a lot of ways. Or you can email me because I've lived in Paris now over 15 times. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I'm always constantly trying to get people to go just to see Paris once before you're dead. I mean, come on, man. Couple fun facts about the good old country of France. It's illegal to make bread improperly. Yep. There are rules about how you make bread. Not like some FDA rules or what we have here under the organic codes and all that stuff. We're talking if you want to be and run a bakery there in Paris, you will be fined if you do not make their baguette in a very, very specific way. Your place can be shut down because of this. That's how serious they take their bread. And I'm talking when you get the bread in the morning, you get the baguette, you crack it open, smoke just comes out of the steam of it. Put a little butter on there. Oh my goodness, it'll blow your mind. You could just live on bread and butter, I think. I have lived on bread and butter. Everything's cheap when you get there. The food's fantastic. Again, tourist trap restaurants. Best advice I could tell you about any restaurant in Paris. If the menu has more than 10 items on it, it's probably a crappy place. Most French chefs are so serious about their craft that they will never take anything frozen. They have so much pride in their work that they will never take anything frozen. So if you see a menu when you go into a French cafe or something like that, or a Parisian cafe, and you see it's one of these like huge menus, everything is frozen. It's a tourist trap. It's overpriced. Don't do it. But if you end up in smaller places like the Montmartre, like by the Sacre-Cœur and all this, you'll find these little hole-in-the-wall restaurants where they have a they have a chalkboard outside the cafe, and the chef will tell the workers there what is fresh that day and what we're having that day. And it is exquisite. We make a joke in the United States about farm to table, organic. Farm to table, all this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, everything there is farm to table, okay? Remember, it's a small country. So, yes. So, you have the farmers right outside the city, kill the animal, bring the animal in. You go fishing, grab the fish, bring it on in that day. That's why when there's like political upheavals, like a lot of the farmers, if they're pissed off about something, they'll actually, when they strike, they really strike. It's not like here in America where we're just do lazy strikes and burn down our own businesses. No, some farmers will bring in their own livestock and just have them walk through the streets of Paris, blocking traffic, automotive traffic. They're not fucking around there. A lot of people forget that the name restaurant comes from the French word restore, to restore oneself. Most people were never served at a restaurant. There were no restaurants. If you were served by anybody, it's because you're part of the monarchy. You're part of the old class. So it was after they handled their business, which we might want to think about for our own country at one point or another. They invented this idea of the cafe, the restaurant, the bistro, and it's there to restore oneself so you could sit there. That's also why when people say you can go there and have a cup of coffee and no one will bother you for hours, it's true, because that's your time to restore yourself. Now, I mentioned I was there 15 times. That's a lot of times to be in a city. I know every little corner, every little curvy road. I know exactly how to determine what part of the neighborhoods I'm in. And like any good city, there are places where you don't need to go if you're a visitor. You don't need to go to the first arrondissement or the second arrondissement of the little neighborhoods. You're going to waste your time. You're going to find yourself walking these weird streets, and you're not going to know what's going on. You're going to get annoyed. And do a little research before you go. Just kind of learn about each neighborhood. Something entices you, go to that neighborhood. But there are many places that you don't need to go to. Just like in New York City, I would never say, hey, welcome to New York City. You never been here? Why don't you go hang out in the Bronx? No offense, Bronx friends. I love you guys. But there's no way in hell you're going to tell somebody, be like, you know where you need to go first time in New York? Staten Island. You know where you need to go? Deep, deep Brooklyn. Make sure you just end up in Battery Park. Plenty of places in this city you don't need to go, and the same thing applies to Paris. I've been there so many times now. I have lost that postcard image of what Paris is. From the postcards, the romantic. Of course, the first time I went there, it was absolutely romantic. I was overwhelmed. I could not believe that a young Rhode Island boy could somehow end up by himself, little money in his pocket, sitting by the River Seine, just like the whole cliche, with a baguette under my arm, staring at the Notre Dame, drinking wine out of the bottle, but seeing all the beautiful French people with their style and their clothes and all of this. Yeah, it was postcard perfect. But I've been there. They have the same problems that New Yorkers have. They have the same problems as any other American city. You got to watch your ass. Crime is huge in Paris. You need to be careful. It's not like gun crime like we have here, but they'll stab you. They get, it's kind of like London. They have a knife problem out there in Paris, other than the terrorists. But yeah, over the years, the mystery of Paris has kind of gone away, and so I can really see it for what it is. It's a thriving, thousands of year old city, amazing. New York's only 567 years old or something like that, and Paris is 2,000 years old. So if you really have any kind of feeling about ghosts or believe in any kind of, phantasmas, well, I will tell you right now that Paris is full of them. Okay, so I gave you a little bit of reasons why. So that was point one. Little advice. So if you're traveling with the wife or the husband or on the honeymoon, you can always write any questions in to Kill the Cat Radio here. You can follow us on Twitter. Just write in things there too, or put in the comment section. I'll give you advice. Send me your email, and I love to talk about it. I don't work for the Parisian embassy or anything like that, but I probably should. Number two, and yes, it's connected. In life, we have many memories. In life, we must suffer. It is our lot in life. Human beings must work. We must suffer, despite what the young socialist communist types say in this country. You got to get a job. You got to do your thing. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, we can be satisfied. We can get through the day. We can have a great dinner. We can do this. We can do that. But what about the times that made you the most happy? I can only think of 2 times where I felt in my adult life, 2 times where I felt like I had an out of body experience. And this is part 2 of this week's show. I'm going to tell you. And before I go into it, I want you to think about yours too. Write it down. Get a little piece of paper and write yours down too, because it took me a little while to kind of think, wow, what was a memory that when I'm an old man, I will just sit there and remember for eternity. As it happens, I'm 45 years old. Therefore, I am divorced. I was talking to a psychologist once, and the guy told me, he said, I was really sad about my marriage falling apart. And he said something like, he's like, well, at least you join now 60% of the rest of Americans. I'm like, oh, okay. It made me feel kind of better. I married a French woman after all the experiences that I had in France, and I actually met her here in Brooklyn. But after all the experiences I had in France, I guess maybe she was like, well, this American's different. He actually knows about Paris. He knows about the country. He knows about the history of the country. So we fell in love, just very, as people do. Right before we were married here in City Hall in New York City, I went out to go meet her family and meet the people, her father, her mother, and let them know that I was going to marry their daughter, and I loved her, and we were going to move to New York City, and everything was going to be fine. Well, there's a small little town called Cabo. Okay, it's in the North Normandy portion of France. Beautiful, beautiful place. Normandy is crazy. The American flag flies proudly in Normandy still. Also, fun fact too, largest American graveyard of American soldiers are in France, and they respect it very much. So don't buy what everybody tells you about the French hating the Americans. It's bullshit. Maybe the Parisians, we'll get into them later, but don't buy that bullshit. So anyways, we're in Normandy. Now, Normandy is kind of an interesting place. It's right by the water. Kabul is right on the waterfront. And at nighttime, the water is so black. It's black as night. It's not like the Mediterranean where you can always see a touch of blue even in the darkness. At nighttime, it's basically the English Channel, right? So it's the closest part to England you can get in France, basically. And it's kind of a shipping town. It's kind of a retirement town. It's a little beach community. I think I was there right at the end of the beach season, but the water was still cold, but it was like a good cold. It was a salty cold. It was really good. I had just got out of the rigmarole of New York City. I couldn't wait to get out. New York City can grind you down. You New Yorkers know exactly what I'm talking about. I found myself in this small little community, living in a small little house with my fiance. And I just remember feeling this total overwhelming feeling of freedom. It was as if all my dreams were coming true at once. So I said, "Hey, sweetheart, can we grab a bunch of bottles of wine and just go to the water?" And she's like, "Well, it's a little cold." I'm like, "I don't care. I just feel great. I'm out of New York City. There's no dirty sidewalks. There's no homeless bums. I don't have to fight anybody. No one's, it's just a beautiful little small town." She's like, "All right, do whatever you want." I mean, I like that too. The freedom of, there's no cops around or whatever, no rules. In America, there's always rules, litigious society and all that. My great memory is grabbing, probably we had maybe 5 bottles of wine, red, white, whatever, put it in a little bag, got a baguette, of course, because it's France, and ran down over to the beach. And it was at nighttime, and the beaches of Cabo is so, it stretches out so long. It was low tide, so you could go way out and still be in the water. And it was just this beautiful scene. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget this. I don't know if I have like a bit of a pirate in me, but we were sitting on the beach, making out and doing all this stuff. And I just felt this overwhelming sense. I cracked every bottle open. We were trying every different bottle of wine. It was awesome. And I remember just making out with her, just looking at the dark night above the black currents of water. It was just amazingly beautiful, poetic, everything. I don't know, something just overwhelmed me. I was probably a little drunk too. And so I grabbed the bottles. I grabbed like 4 of them, corked them, just ran out in the water, took off all my clothes, and just splashed into the water, not even caring if there was any strange sea urchins or animals. I didn't think about this. Stripped down, straight up nude, just completely boop. This naked as the day you're born. Naked as the day you're born. I grabbed them. And this is where the pirate thing comes in. I just remember throwing the bottles into the water because, they float, right? Of course, because they're corked bottles. Of course they're going to float. Message in a bottle, if you will. I splash it in the water, and I just kind of sit there and float, and the water feels so nice on my body, and I'm just sitting there floating, and the moon's out, and you can see the half crescent moon above, and it's sort of shining down. And I'm slowly floating further and further out into the water. And all around me, the bottles almost seem to follow me a little bit. There's like, a couple over here, and it started going over here. I kind of get one and crack it out, do another one, put it down, grab it, crack it out with my teeth, take a drink. And they're just floating around me. And I'm like, "Hey, baby, get in the water with me. Take your clothes off. Get over here." No one was around. It was nighttime, I don't know. I left my clothes on the beach. She did. Took off all her clothes. She was kind of shy, but, whatever. And ran out to me, and we just kind of floated around naked with all these wine bottles, talking, looking at the moon. It was just, what a memory. I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 other ones that I kind of remember, that feeling of total freedom, just complete, just utter, where a part of yourself, sort of all that nervousness and the anxiety of your daily life and your worries and concerns about the future. I know you've had these moments, and you should write them down. It's important to remember them and why they were important. I mean, you don't have to start a podcast channel and talk to strangers on YouTube to explain it, but you do it your own way. You do you, and I'll do me. This is a little more contentious, a little more interesting, because now we're going to slowly kind of wrap up what we're talking about here. Third portion of the show. And this is very specific, and I really want people to really think about this when they're traveling abroad, especially in France. We like to look at the French like they're kind of just like Americans, but with funny accents. It's not. All right. The French are so precise about everything. Why do you think all the great clothing lines come from France? Why do you think all the great art movements mainly come from France? Why do you think the language is so bizarrely precise and odd and constantly changing? Okay, something about this culture, this Francophile culture, is so specific. When you see old people wandering around Paris, you'll see older men and women. They're in shape. They are well dressed. I mean, admittedly, they do make fun of American culture when they come to Walmart here, outside Dallas, Texas, and they see everybody in sweatpants and Crocs. You can imagine why they're like, what is wrong with the American? They do not want to dress up before they go outside. Now, look, Americans, we play things fast and loose. That's just the way our culture is. We want people to understand that we're individuals and we're free to do whatever the hell we want, because that's what we do. Bill of Rights, Constitution, we're a unique country. France is a unique country too, and they got their own thing. Now, to the American mind, it can come off kind of weird, and we'll get into that in a second. First things first, what I miss when I'm living over abroad in Paris is bars. Good old-fashioned American bars. Not the bars you get poisoned in, like last week's episode. Good old-fashioned American bars. They have bars in Paris. You can drink whatever you want if you want it. They don't care. They're not going to judge you. You want to wake up, and if a cafe is open and they have wine, they're not going to look at you and judge you if you have a glass of red wine in the morning. That's kind of a European thing. They don't care. I mean, they don't like drunks, obviously, because remember, they're very, particular people, very, very kind of, organized, controlled people. That is until you get to the clubs in Montmartre at night, right? When you're over there. Go hang out in Place Pigalle. Yeah, there's some like all night clubs. Trust me, the Frenchies aren't so organized after that. Actually, the club scene's way better than it is in New York. Club scene here is just like some weird rap video. Over there, it's a rap video, but like amazing. Like people are smoking hashish. There's secret passageways. I went to a couple of clubs that were just amazing, just so civilized and awesome. And that's where they go to hook up. Mainly, you got three types of places. You have cafes. You have bistros and brasseries, and then you have the club system. Cafes, you can always get wine. It's like in America, we have Starbucks, but they have cafes where you can get an espresso. If you want a wine, they always have it. And remember, the best wines are French. I don't care what anyone says. Some people say California, some people say Australia, some people say Chile. Sorry, guys. I think you're wrong. The best wines in the world are Sauvignon Blancs, and he clears. Oh God, it's so good. I still dream of it, and it's $2 for Christ's sake. Anyways, you got the cafes. That's where you sit. That's where you have meetings. That's where you talk to people. Maybe you get a light meal, a croissant, or something like that. You get that there. Next one is bistros or brasseries. That's where you do lunch, like a proper meal, right? But either of these places, there's always a bar, but there's never that American, English, Anglo, Scottish, Irish version of a tavern bar. They try it over there, but it's still weird. Like, let me give you an example. If you were to go to a brasserie or a bistro or a cafe and you're sitting at the bar and there's a stranger next to you, okay, you don't talk to them when you're in Paris. You'd have to know the language and go through a series of dialogues like "ça va," bonjour monsieur, "ça va," you say "ça va," and then they're kind of awkward because they're like, well, why is this stranger talking to me? But then if you do a little dance and if you are charming enough, you can get through to them. But it's a whole social dance that you have to go through to make friends or acquaintances. American bar, think about it. I mean, any bar you go to, someone walks in there like, hey buddy, let me get a Budweiser, let me buy it for my friend over here. Like in Texas or New Orleans or any of the South, plus, or anywhere in New England too. People are very, the American bar scene is so cool. You just roll in and you can talk to anybody. It's not weird. In fact, if someone's weird to you, they're probably weird. But in France, in the bars of Paris, it doesn't work. And I miss that. A couple other things I miss too. Air conditioning. They don't do air conditioning. I don't know what their deal is. So when the French get the reputation during the summer of smelling funny, it's because, on the subways or the metro there's no air conditioning. So it's hot. It gets really, 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 really hot. Also, interestingly enough, ice cubes. They have ice there. They understand it. But Americans invented the refrigerator. We invented it. And the freezer. So, ice cubes are a hot commodity over there. So if you get water, of course, it's just still tap water or whatever. They don't get it. I like my ice. I like my water cold. A pint glass, cold ice water. I like that. Maybe a little lemon on the side. I miss ice cubes, air conditioning, and American bars when I'm over there. You can end up at Place Pigalle, which is their kind of clubbing district, sort of sex district. There's whorehouses. That's another thing too. They got all that going on, but I'm going to say that for another time. The clubs don't close. If you want to drink all night and party all night and do whatever you want to do, Paris, they don't care. They don't even care. And the more higher class the club is, the better. No one's going to judge you. That's where they really kind of let their hair down. That's where they hook up. That's where they, the Frenchies do their thing. It's that late night club thing, and it's fascinating when I go out there because I'm just still drinking like a regular person. And before I know it, now I'm like hanging out with like some Indian people. I'm hanging out with some Arab people. I'm hanging out with some Irish people, Canadians. And it's 7 in the morning, and I'm going, oh my goodness, where am I? You know, try that in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Try that in Providence, Rhode Island. Try that in, Sacramento, California. All right. You're not going to find that. We're so strict on everything. But there in the city of Paris, it's let freedom ring. So, yeah, Paris is a great place to be alone or with someone that you love and you can just hang out with and be a partner with somebody. Those little differences. It's a very, I don't want to say exclusionary culture. It's just it's something you need to think about when you go there. So us Americans, we love to be gregarious about everything. And that's a good part of our nature. I like that part about us. But when I'm in Paris, though, if someone's loud, I look over and I go, oh, right. Worst story that just came to mind. I was sitting in a Paris cafe doing a little writing, being a total cliched writer. It was probably my third time I was there. And this really, really made me want to murder my own countrymen. Fifth Arrondissement, one of the oldest neighborhoods in all of Paris. Beautiful. It's like exactly what you think about when you think about the movies, the winding roads and all the, beautiful little shops and just little dives and interesting little places. Sitting there at the cafe writing, just doing my thing, whatever. I was still new, very shy, didn't really know the language. I could speak okay now, I could get by, but before I didn't know anything. Like, sitting there writing, and I see this woman, yes, a bit portly, get up from her chair, you hear the whole thing go like that. She walks right over to the maitre d' and the servers of this place here. They're all like decked out with their black bow ties and all this. And she says, y'all take American money around here? Oh, no, please. Why? No. What are you doing? No. I never wanted to like hit a person more than when I heard this. Y'all take American money here? It's such a disrespect to the culture. It's like, no, lady. This is a different country. All right. They don't take cash. It's called euro. All right. It was just nails on a chalkboard. It was a record scratching at that moment. Everybody looks up like, what is going on here? And it was funny because the French waiter, because they're very sarcastic people, he says, no, madame, we do not take French money, but we'll gladly take everything else. He said something like this. And it was just, I thought it was fucking hilarious because he said it in bad English. And it was just very funny. We'll take everything else. We won't, anyways, whatever. It just made me want to just walk up to this lady and backhand the shit out of her. How dare you represent my country in such a foul and pathetic and Philistine manner? Anyways, yeah. So that's part 3. The differences, the little differences when you travel over there, things to keep in mind. Knowledge is the key. All right. Favorite time now, creep of the week. And yes, I think you guys are seeing a pattern here. Again, creep of the week doesn't have to be somebody certain, although I'm going to start pointing out some people very soon. The people that really get under my skin in modern culture and in media and news and entertainment. There's a lot of bullshit going on. This week, however, it's a certain type of people. And I think a lot of you people in the hospitality industries here in the United States will know what I'm talking about. Parisian tourists. Now, did I just spend the entire podcast talking about how much I love France? Didn't I just spend the entire time talking about how much I love Paris? Well, guess what, kids? It's real different when some of these Parisians come here. And I'm going to break it all down for you right now. Biggest thing I hear from people, the number one complaint is that they don't tip. Tipping is not known in French culture, but they have internet. They have books. They know. But here's the deal. The people who can afford to travel to the United States from France are probably the richest of the richest of the richest, or the children of the richest of the richest of the richest. Think about it. France is a socialist country. We all talk about how much we love socialism here in the United States. Really? Do you? Each paycheck we pay, each year, basically, we pay out of our paychecks about 37% to the American government. They pay, after all is said and done, probably about 79 to 80% of their paycheck goes to the French government. Think about that. All right, now I'm already hearing the argument. They're saying, hey, they get free education. Yes. My wife had 2 degrees from very prestigious universities. She paid maybe maximum $100. Try to go to Harvard and see what kind of debt you get when you come out of that in the United States of America. You want your teeth cleaned? You got a cavity? It's on the government. You got cancer, they'll put you somewhere. You'll be fine. You'll be in a hospice. No big deal. All right. They'll take care of you. That's socialism. If you think about it, all your money's got to go into the government for them to pay for this and all the stuff. So if you really want to be a socialist, just try to think every time you get paid, 80% of your money goes to the government. Now, they're a way smaller country than we are. As I said, France is smaller than Texas. That's a whole country. Texas is a state in a giant country. We live in the biggest country other than Russia in the world, Russia and China, right? So what does this mean? Well, what it means is that Paris is basically their Wall Street. It's called La Défense. Okay, there's an area, that's their financial marketplace. If you want money and you are a French person, you have to live in Paris. You have to. Unlike most major American cities, what they call the suburbs in Paris, outside of it, are actually the hood, the ghetto, bad places. Poor people live there. Now, I'm not scared of poor people, but that's where they live. The deeper you go into the heart of the city, the inner city of Paris, that's where all the wealthiest people live. That's their Wall Street. That's their money. If you got cash, you are Parisian. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys as Americans. And I'm not talking about like normal rich people money, like nouveau riche, like we have here. Like a person could have a great idea in the United States and just go and make money. And if they're successful, God bless them, and that they do it. There, the Parisian money is like Louis the 18th money. We're talking before the French Revolution. We're talking like gold standard. We're talking colonization, baby. Like all the way back to the old school days of the monarchy, that kind of money. And so the only people who really have the money, unless they save and save and save and save and save, just to come to America I mean, some do. I've met tons of Frenchies that come out here and they're cool. Most of the time, the French version of people we meet here come from that aristocratic money. And that's why they leave a bad taste in our mouths. So when they come here, they look at us like we're Neanderthals, beasts, uneducated, Philistines. So we're not meeting their best. We're meeting their richest. Or even worse, we're meeting the children of the children of the children of the richest. So that's just crazy to me. They look at us like we're uneducated, psycho, warmongering, Bible-toting, gun-wielding psychopaths, which in a way we are kind of. No, but that's the creep of the week, the Parisian tourists. And the reason why they're creepy is because they have a sense of entitlement. And when they come here, especially to New York City, they love New York City. Every bartender, every waiter I know hates the French. And I have to explain this to them all the time. I said, yes, they are the creep of the week. They are terrible because they are the ones who have all the money. And it's the old school money, like that old money, you know, the scary money. So, folks, what I'm trying to tell you is don't judge all the Frenchies by these Parisians. You know, if you go to Paris, you will run into them and they can't stand American tourists, you know, for reasons like that lady. But also we go there and we just wear sweatpants and we look like shit and we talk too loud. And it's true. I saw it myself. I was lucky, though, because I learned the language. So when they start saying little, you know, insults to me in French, I now know what they're saying. And I can insult them back in their own language. And trust me, nothing makes the Parisian rich asshole more angry than swearing at them and insulting them in their own language as an American tourist. So we give them a nice Brooklyn 5-finger sandwich to the noggin and they'll be just fine. Don't judge the rest of the French because of these people. These people are just from the rich and they're just assholes and they have no understanding of what's going on in their small little beady culture. And that is the creep of the week. All right, guys. Now we're in the talk back section. Talk back, talk back, talk back. The criticisms have been low. I get some emails or what have you, you know, like people just chiming in. Maybe they're trying to be friendly. Maybe they're just saying like, hey, you know, like you should change this or, you know, this background doesn't look that good or your camera is not that good. That's fine. You're going to get that. Okay. And even if you wanted to start your own channel, you would face the same bullshit that I'm facing with some of these criticisms. But a lot of the kind of attackers, you know, the people who say, oh, you're meandering or whatever, that shit, that time is over. I'm getting a little bit better with you guys and kind of like really bonding with this. Actually, most of the talkback comment sections, I have to say, have been all positive. There's been strangers who added us as subscribers. There's been some old friends who discovered this. I have to say, this week's been relatively positive, maybe because spring's coming around. But yeah, the talkback comment portion, it's really great. I've really got a lot of compliments from people and a lot of private emails and a lot of just mainly commenters like, hey, I saw your thing here, I saw your thing there, and a friend told me to watch your channel. And it's been great. So the talkback section is pretty cool for this week. It's light. Comment below with anything you want to talk about with me, any topic. Nothing is off the table. We're not controlled, by the way, by any YouTube rules because we're not monetized yet. We will be eventually, and then there'll be some kind of rules a little bit, but there's ways around it. As of right now, this is an open field. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. What's this? As I said, this is a communal effort. This is pretty fun stuff. I'm Matthew Diabate. I'm the host here. Kill the Cat Radio, Sharp Teeth. This is episode 7. I cannot believe it. And then on Monday, we're going to do episode 8. And that's going to be an entirely different thing. I'm not going to give you any hints, but that'll be a real good one too. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, and I'll see you on Monday. Have a nice weekend.